So hey everybody, welcome back to my paranormal experiences. Um, I'm back again tonight to tell you more of my stories, and this next place I lived there two different times in my life. Once whenever I was a teenager with my mother, and then another time whenever I had my second born child. And it was just me and her for a little while, and then it was me, her, and my husband and my stepchild. And but anyway, um so the first time I lived at this apartment complex, I was about 12, 13 whenever I moved in, and I moved out whenever I was roughly 17. Yeah, 17. So during these few years, there was a few things that, was always talked about. Different neighbors saying, "No, this happened and this happened." There were claims that the apartment complex itself was built on an Indian burial ground. There was claims that there was a boy that hung himself in the woods. There was a bunch of claims of suicides, murders, just death all around. And so what was to come next was just natural. Now, there was a couple things I remember from that time. And one of those things were me and my stepsister. We were sitting out on a back patio. And we were just, chilling, hanging out like we always did. Our back patio, there was maybe 30 trees, not quite that many, but, there were some trees there that the kids would hang out in and play in. But we would just sit back there and talk and hang out, enjoying the summer. Well, beyond the row of townhouses I was in was a playground and a little water retention area that was fenced in. And beyond that was a little patch of woods, just a really small little patch of woods. Well, between this water retention area and the patch of woods, there was this cement drain, this big culvert, whatever they call it. Well, we noticed that there was this kid that was sitting on the cement. He had a red hat on, a white shirt. We seen that his shorts were red, his shoes were white, he was just red and white matching. And we were just sitting there watching him. He appeared to be smoking a cigarette, and that's what we were pretty much doing, sitting outside smoking. And we noticed that he stood up and started walking towards the corner of the fence. And we're sitting there going, "Oh, I wonder if he's seen us. I wonder if he's going to come over here and talk to us. He looks kind of cute." So we're sitting there watching him, and, he's kind of glancing over at us. And I'm like, "I think he sees us. I think he's going to come over here." And she's like, "Yeah, I think he sees us too." So as he's coming around the corner of the fence, he's gone. I mean, just plain out gone. He disappears. And he heard us kind of look at each other, go up into our room, and just kind of stay there the rest of the night. Because it was just, odd. And then there was another time where I forget if it was my friend or if it was my stepsister again. But we were down at the little playground there, right in front of the fenced in area. We were sitting there swinging, because there was a bunch of swings, and we were sitting there swinging. And all of a sudden we started hearing, like, noise behind us. And that fenced in, like, water retention area, it had weeds in it that grew up pretty high, and then, they would cut it down, and it would grow back up, and they would cut it down. Well, at that time it was pretty high. So you could hear, like, rustling in the weeds and stuff like that, and we were like, oh, it must be an animal or something. Well, all of a sudden we hear against the fence. We jump, we look back, and there's two guys standing there. And they look like they're homeless. They look all, raggedy. You can see their teeth was all disgusting, and they just looked dirty. So we jumped up, and we started running, and we turned around, and they were gone. So it was just like, well, obviously we went back up to the apartment, and we're just like, yeah, we're not going back down there tonight. But those are like the only things I really remember from that time, besides, as I mentioned in the old farmhouse, how I would have that kid that would visit me outside the window. Yeah, he came to me at least maybe 3 or 4 times. And I remember the last time he came to me, he pretty much told me it was going to be the last time he'd seen me. And he thanked me for helping him. So I never truly know what I did to help him, but at least I helped him. Now, later on, whenever I had my own apartment in the same apartment complex, I lived in a different section where it wasn't the townhouses, it was the actual apartments. And I lived on the 3rd floor. Well, living on the 3rd floor, it was the top floor. And it was so weird because, we'd sit there, I'd have a bunch of friends over playing cards, and we'd be drinking and having a good old time. Then the night would start calming down, and we would put on some music and just sit around. And every now and again, it would have bouts of quietness, Every now and again, you had that awkward silence as friends. So you were just kind of sitting around, and it was one of those awkward silence moments. And we all started to hear what sounded like somebody walking in the living room above us. And my friend's not really thinking of it, not really thinking, oh, I'm on the top floor, there shouldn't be anybody above me. My friend was like, man, your neighbors are really freaking noisy up there. And I just kind of looked at them and was like, I don't have neighbors that live above me. And then we all just kind of realized, oh, what was that? And so from then on out, it wasn't every night, but it was just randomly, I would hear somebody walking above me. Well, then, it came to a point where in my bedroom, I had to have my bed a certain way to where I could face the door. Why? Well, if I had my back to the door and I couldn't see the door, I would hear my refrigerator. Literally, my refrigerator would open and then shut. And I would see the light. If I was facing the door, I could see the light. And if I wasn't facing the door, I would hear footsteps coming to my door, and then I'd feel like somebody was staring at me. I'd turn, no one was ever there. But as long as I was facing the door, the refrigerator would open and shut, but nobody would come to my doorway. Well, time progresses. I meet, my husband, and we have a child. And, these little odd things are still happening. Even our daughters are coming to us saying, weird things. Like, my one daughter swears that she woke up in the middle of the night and seen my other daughter's decapitated head laying on her pillow next to her. They swore to God they seen Homer Simpson, a miniature version of Homer Simpson, jumping on their miniature trampoline. There was a lot of things that the kids seen that I never did, but I learned from being a kid who's seen things that my parents didn't to not discredit them. So I just let them talk about it, and I never showed them that I didn't believe them or I did believe them. I just let them talk about it. So my son came about. Well, he didn't just come about, but my son was born, and my son's grandfather passed before he was age 30. He was a quite tall man. Well, our son would look up real high, real high, and watch something walk across the living room and smile. And we're just like, that's way weird, And then he started calling it Dada. And we started scratching our heads because my husband, from what everybody says, looked a lot like his father, which would have been my son's grandfather that was passed. So me and my husband determined that was probably his dad coming to check up on his grandson. Because that didn't just happen once, it happened a couple times where my son would sit there and just watch something really tall. Tall. And he would smile, Dada. So it was pretty weird to, sit there and watch my son kind of talk to something that wasn't there. I remember there was one time I was laying in the recliner and I was like halfway asleep. My husband was at work. My son's at home, he's just a baby. Our daughters are at school. And my son wakes up from his nap, and, I'm still kind of in and out of that nap stage myself, where I'm kind of awake, kind of not. And I hear him saying, Dada. And I didn't really think anything of it at the time. But then all of a sudden, my recliner, it feels like somebody pushes down on the back of it. Whenever you're laying back on it and you feel like somebody's pushing. I sat there and I'm just like, and I looked at my son and he was looking directly above me. Dada. I just kind of looked behind me and said, okay, Dad, I understand. He's awake. I need to pay attention to him. So it was just kind of like a kick in the ass. Like, hey, wake the heck up. My grandson's up. So there was some pretty odd things that always seemed to happen in that complex itself, from shadows outside to strange noises. The apartment complex didn't have too much other than rumors and stuff like that that flew through the social little butterflies that like to gossip. But one thing that always stuck in my head is that the main rumor was it was built on an Indian burial ground, and that could account for all the activity that not only I experienced, but neighbors of mine experienced too, because I wasn't the only one who would hear people walking above me being on the third floor. Um, People in my building heard it, people in other buildings heard it, so it wasn't like just my building. And I know the difference between an animal going across the roof from a person walking across the floor. I mean, an animal, they sort of sound like that. A person, you can hear a person over a. There's a big difference, but not a lot really happened there, other than just the simple noises. Every now and again, I would hear my name called whenever the kids were at school. I'd hear "Mom." So there's just the little things that happen that it don't frighten you, but it lets you know that there's something there. But from there, my next house that I would like to talk about would be the house I lived in for a winter and a spring before my second child was born. So if you would like to hear about the basement, let's call it the basement, because I had a room in the basement, please check out my next video. And as always, like, subscribe, comment, peace, love, and happiness, and I'll see you guys later.